the weather, but I don't know what the weather looks like right now. But if I am going to go by how it feels in the studio, it is a bright Monday morning, if you like, right here on Nigeria's number one for talk. It's 11:30. That's what the time says, and we are set again for another exciting, revealing episode of Power Solutions with Dr. Wiebe Boer and my humble self.
So, Collins, just to let you know, it's not sunny at all outside. It's been raining, dark, cloudy. So, sometimes you radio people, you're not paying attention to what's going on. So
I'm telling you.
But I do have a question for you. It's a bit of, I've been wondering, hearing the show on the way, you've been talking about polygamy and polyandry.
Yeah.
Is it awkward talking about polygamy when your wife is on the show with you?
It is awkward. At some point, she asked me whether I could allow if she wants to marry.
On air. I didn't
on
hear
air,
that
she
one.
did. She did.
Okay.
She did, and
But you didn't ask the other way if you could take a
No, I just asked Nigerian women that.
Oh, okay.
Do they look key?
Generally. Okay.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Do they think that if it's a law, would they try it?
And did your wife give you a look?
She obviously said no, but some
okay,
women
okay.
called and said
okay.
they were cool with that.
Okay, all right. Well, let's.
It was
All right.
actually awkward, actually.
Okay, all right.
But yeah.
Anyway, but
The job has
more
to be
power
done.
to you, man. All right. So we're actually last week we had a show. We were scheduled to have the executive director of technical services of the REA on.
Yeah.
He joined us, but the connection was really poor, and so we really weren't able to have a proper conversation. And
That's right.
the work he does is very, very important. His experience is very important. So we wanted to just bring him back and do a full show with him. So he's on the line now, I believe. Is he there? Engineer, are you on?
Yep.
Yes, I am, Wiebe.
Fantastic. And you can hear us fine now. No wahala this time?
Loud and clear.
All right, good. Excellent. So hope you had a blessed Ramadan holiday.
Yes, I did, and happy Salah to everyone who celebrated.
Amen. And did you celebrate in Abuja or you went home? Where were you?
I was in Abuja.
You were in Abuja. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so look, it sounds like our sound is clear today. So we're going to really start this over because last week it was so much stop and start. Mm-hmm. So the way I kicked it off last week is I was really excited about the fact that our guest today is someone who has built a career in the power sector in a way that even 20 years ago you wouldn't be able to talk about. Power wasn't really a career in Nigeria, and now it is. And so Engineer Barka Sajou, he's the Executive Director of Technical Services at REA. He joined earlier this year, but he's been in discos, he's been in consulting firms, development projects on so many sides of the sector, and so he's one of the leading lights of the sector. So, Engineer, can you give us a little bit of the background of your decade in the power sector, how you've built a career in it, and a bit about your professional journey that got you to where you are now in the REA?
All right. Thanks again, Wiebe and Teke. Happy to be on the show, and good morning to our listeners.
Yeah.
My name is Barka Sajou. I am an engineer, an electrical engineer by training. So I started out first off working in the oil and gas sector as a maintenance engineer in a company called Integrated Data Services Limited, the subsidiary of NNPC. But after a couple of years, I wanted to go into the power sector mainstream, and then I went back to school to major in power systems. Upon completion of my program, it was just about the start of the privatization of the electricity market in Nigeria. And so I got a job with the disco and was working on the commercial side of things, just trying to focus on loss reduction, given the new ownership. Having spent a few years there, I came back to development consulting. I was working for a program called the Nigerian Infrastructure Advisory Facility, where I was working as a market analyst, pretty much supporting various departments of government that were into the power sector, TCN and the regulator and their likes. After a while, I joined the World Bank as a consultant, and there I was focused on actually building off-grid projects and raising financing for them, something called the green bonds. So essentially, it was a financing mechanism that was focused on raising capital for green projects, including mini grids and some of these university projects that you may be aware of. I haven't done this for about 5 years. I got an opportunity to join AEDC as the lead of their strategy team on decentralized energy solutions. And there it was an exciting opportunity. So I stayed there for 2 more years until I was appointed by the president to lead Technical Services Directorate in REA. So that's a very brief summary of my career so far, but it's been an interesting one.
All right, I'm just go straight to the next question that has to do with your role as Executive Director of Technical Services. What does it entail? Before you respond to that, Lagos, Nigeria, just to remind you, Spa Solutions, and we are discussing the pathway to sustainability. And we do have, of course, you heard the voice of Barka Sajou, the Executive Director of Technical Services, Rural Electrification Agency. Now, Executive Director, Technical Services, what does it entail?
Essentially, it's, as the name describes, everything that concerns technical services in terms of deployment of projects under the rural electrification. So from planning, whether it's geospatial planning, to actual implementation of projects, to their supervision and their appraisal. So it covers all ongoing projects and all future projects that will be delivered.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to actually put in a question here. So you used to be in, I think you were in Ibadan, and then you were also in Abuja Discos, right? And so before
Correct.
you came to REA, you had that experience sort of on the private side of delivering power. Now, I know, the discos in Nigeria are kind of like everybody's enemy, right? Everybody feels, the disco's at fault, it's a disco. Are they really culpable for all of the kind of blame that they get, or are they just sort of caught between a hard and a rock place that they're doing all they can, but there's just certain things about the sector that makes it difficult? What's your, obviously I know you have to be a little bit cautious here, but just what is your feeling on this? Are they fairly assessed by the public?
Well, it's a difficult question, but the truth of the matter is I think they're in a difficult place because they are customer-facing. They are the last mile of the value chain. But the situation we found ourselves with the power sector is one that, there's enough blame to go around for everybody.
Yes, true.
So we've got a market that is not very optimal. And most of the things that people describe as the problems, whether it's the liquidity problems, whether it's the quality of service problem, are actually symptoms of the real issue. And the real issue being not an optimal policy framework, a proper market framework that compensates investors for the money that they have put in. But what I would like to touch on as well is, Teke said the discussion is around pathway to sustainability. I want to also add that it's pathway to sustainability of off-grid projects. Because the current grid infrastructure is only able to do, say, 5,000 megawatts. But self-consumption through various off-grid options is almost about 40,000 megawatts, depending on who you're asking. So it's important that we're looking at how, that framework can work more effectively. So I think that's pretty much what I would say on the power sector problems.
All right, beautiful. You see, from your experience in the sector, right? What can you say is the problem of electricity in Nigeria? I know a lot of Nigerians will wait for the answer to this question. So in 2020, the Nigerian Senate said that it will take Nigeria's 40 years to fix the irregular power supply. Do you see us waiting for this decades? That's 4 decades of crying out loud. How old would I be in 40? So, 40 years from now. So what is the problem? And how would you respond to what the Senate said?
There's no silver bullet, really, to solving these problems. But one thing is sure. We've got to go back to the drawing board. And I think we have a good opportunity right now with there's an ongoing review of the legal framework that established the electricity market. The legal framework was done in 2005. A lot of us think that there's need to review this. And in reviewing this, we need to have these very difficult conversations around are we incentivizing investors to put in the right funding, and are consumers willing to pay, for the service that they desire, right? So there's a rare opportunity to change the legal framework and design the market in such a way that it's fit for purpose, where the demand and supply, are adequately met. I don't think we need to wait for 4 years, for 4 decades. I think this is something that, with the unique opportunity of revising the law, we were able to start to get solutions.
Okay.
Okay, so let's then jump into the just sort of follow on that. So the REA recently published 5 pillars to the sustainable deployment of its projects. The goal is to continue to deploy efficient and sustainable projects using set standards and specifications. On a high level, please shed more light on this. Like how what do you mean here by sustainability, and how is this going to make the projects of the REA more successful and more sort of impactful for Nigerians?
So in simple English, sustainability is really like maintaining a product or a project throughout its life cycle in the most optimal way.
Okay.
So for projects, essentially we want to see that if a system is supposed to last 10 years, then we're designing it in a way that it will provide the best for these 15 years or 10 years. And what we've realized is that there are 5 areas that we need to focus on. One is technical, which speaks to things like harmonizing our technical standards. So you want a certain quality of battery, you want a certain quality of cables, you demand them and you enforce it. The second is economical. We need to look at the business models. What you find is projects are delivered, in the past without thinking through how they could pay for themselves. So we're looking into that. We're also looking at access to funding. We have a couple of initiatives that are also providing very low-cost funding for manufacturers and developers. There's also the environmental side. In the choice of technology, we are looking at technologies that would help cut down the carbon emissions and displace more harmful sources. There's the social angle. We know the current economic situation in Nigeria, so government would need to still step in some sort of way, whether it's through some subsidy or some sort of microcredit arrangement. There's the angle of hospitals and public spaces, like schools and all of that. There's a need for government to look into that, especially with the COVID situation. Finally, is the institutional side. I mean, all of this can be done except with people, the right people. So the management capability, O&M skills, and all of that is something we're looking at. So entirely in a holistic way, we're trying to see that from now moving forward, we're able to deploy our projects with all of this in mind. And all of the issues that are historical, we'll somehow look for a way to correct them.
All right. Very interesting to know. As the Executive Director, Technical Services, what are the technical standards you'll be adopting and implementing for the different projects of the REA? And by the way, Lagos, Nigeria, the REA is the Rural Electrification Agency.
Yeah. So we're adopting a harmonized standard, and internally in REA, we've got various programs. We've got the Nigerian Electrification Program, which is a World Bank and AFDB financing program. We've got our Rural Electrification Fund program, and then we've got the Capital Project, which really is government funding for capital projects. We already had some standards, and these standards were very much in alignment with standards set by the regulator. But what we've done now is to harmonize them. And this standard cuts across grid extension projects, injection substations, mini grid deployments, solar home street lights. And right now, we're comfortable to say we have a draft that will be publishing in the coming week.
Okay. Wow.
Okay, fantastic. So now, what do you see as the big picture when you think of sustainability for the renewable energy sector in Nigeria? Not just, sustainability for the REA's programs, but for the sector as a whole. Because as we know, there's actually been solar projects in Nigeria actually for the 40 years. I mean, there's been decades of these projects. Unfortunately, many of them failed along the way, and so solar kind of got a bad rep, which I think is still a lingering problem that we face now. So with the technical standards and all that you're putting in place, but then also your sort of focus on sustainability in the REA, what do you think that will mean for the solar sector as a whole, both in your work and sort of beyond?
Right. The simple answer is that it will translate into the big picture would be one that ensures that projects don't fail quickly after deployment. But that doesn't happen by itself, right? So things like technical standards that we're harmonizing and enforcing, things like access to cheap capital, things like helping with duty issues, custom problems, and all of that. All of these things somehow contributing to deploying more sustainable projects.
Well, Lagos, Nigeria, we are 16 minutes deep into the conversation. We have less than 14 more to go to wrap up this amazing conversation we're having. It's like a rematch, if you like, for those who are sports lovers of this conversation, which we started last week, but technically we couldn't complete it. And it's good to know that so far so good. Our guest has, answered the question so well, and we're moving on swiftly and softly. If you have listened to the conversation, you listened to his contribution, and you think there's a question you have to ask, or maybe a contribution to make, now, as every Nigerian, you should be concerned about what the solution is concerning the power situation in this country. And that's why Power Solutions is one of a kind of a program that affords you, as a Nigerian, the opportunity not only to listen to what the government is doing, what the private sector is doing, but also contribute to how we can fix the power problem in this country. Isn't that great? So we're talking about this, of course, a very all-important conversation, the pathway to sustainability, and I guess adds off-grid in the off-grid specifically. Now, my next question to you, sir, it's, it's something I should have asked last week, but of course you know why we didn't. Please share with us some key projects you're currently overseeing or you currently oversee in the REA. I mean, Nigerians would love to know.
Right. So technical services is pretty much supporting various initiatives across the REA. But more specifically, we at Technical Services oversee the capital project, which essentially entails the deployment of grid extension projects, like I mentioned earlier, some mini grids, and some street lights, solar street lights. We also focus on supporting what we call the Rural Electrification Fund. The Rural Electrification Fund also deploys similar projects like mini grids. And more recently, if you've been following the news, we've also supported the deployment of various COVID interventions across Unity schools.
Okay.
Yes, and then some primary health care centers.
Oh.
So 200 primary health care centers and about 103 Unity schools, providing various forms of electrification.
Wow. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I mean, it's good to know. Now, someone was asking, he said, the question I asked you about whether what the Senate said about when we get power fixed in the country, that you didn't give an estimate of when you think it will happen.
So it's not 40 years.
So it's not 40 years, but how many years do you think we are going to wait?
That's a difficult one. I can't say how many years, but I think we're in a good position right now.
Okay.
Because for me, again, I think it's the design of the market, which by extension is still about the legal framework.
All right. Do you think that Nigerians need to know more about, this sector and how it operates? Because at the end of the day, whatever we're doing has to do with the people. Nigerians, is there a gap? Is that a gap when it comes to knowledge gap or understanding of the sector? Would you say that's a challenge too?
Indeed. My experience in the distribution company, actually buttresses the point that there's need for more communication, whether it's through programs like the stock shows that we're having right now.
Okay.
If customers understand better the the structure of the market, the structure of how electricity works. I think they would be better off for it.
Great. Well said.
Oh wait, okay.
Yeah, so, okay, now you are 4 months on the job now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what should we expect from you in this role within the next 1 year?
So I oversee the Technical Services Directorate. I think on that level, it will be a more efficiently run directorate,
Okay.
which would translate to deployment of better projects from the Rural Electrification Agency.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Fantastic. So we'll be here again a year from now to, pretty much have your scorecard and have you talk to us on the progress made so far. And I hope you, of course, you'll be available to have that conversation with us again.
Yeah, but
Anytime.
I still have a couple of questions. So
Okay, please.
It sounded like Collins was like shutting me down, but I'm going to talk now.
No,
Can I
no,
talk?
no.
Okay. No, so look, again, I want to tap into, because you've been on the disco side and on the government side. So, there's now this sort of coming together of off-grid and on-grid through the franchises. And to me, I know you said there's no silver bullet, but that seems to me like a real powerful solution that could really make a difference. What is your view on that? And is the REA playing any role there, or are you staying quite, with your rural mandate?
Okay, so I think that's an interesting question. I support an integrated distribution framework. And what that means is a handshake between where the grid is at the moment and what the off-grid space is playing. But over the years, the off-grid space has not really scaled up. And the problems include access to financing, having a large portfolio of projects, and then the issue of expertise. So I think for the DER ecosystem, the centralized energy resource ecosystem, which is mostly off-grid, for them to be able to actually make a better impact, there's a need to have a good handshake with the discos, working together. So for REA, we are supporting this, and there's a project that is coming online maybe before the end of the year, the Wuse project, Wuse Market project, where the market will be getting reliable and clean energy through a combination of grid power and off-grid solar system. The REA actually conducted the energy audit for this project, and I'm happy to say that it's near completion. This would truly be the first interconnected mini grid in Nigeria, where the DISCO is playing a part in supplying reliable electricity, and then there is a backup supply from the developer.
And so you see that this can then be a model that can then be kind of replicated across Nigeria.
Absolutely. This model, when it's scaled up, would really go a long way, because what we've seen at REA is that the problem is not just for the rural people that are mostly unelectrified. We've got a large number of people that are connected but are grossly underserved.
Wow, a lot of take-homes today. Even our time is fast spent. We have to run away today now, and I don't know if Wiebe has got one or two, because he's got some questions.
I do have one final question.
I know.
So,
I just started, and I was right. So what would that be quickly before
okay, so my final question, engineer, can you still hear me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, good. The final question is this. So in the REA, almost all of the management is, you're all relatively young compared, let's say, to most leadership in government. So how has that contributed to REA's being so successful and being so, you're one of those government agencies that everyone talks about in a really positive way. Is it because of the youthfulness, or what is it? What is the secret?
Yes, I think the youthfulness plays a role in trying to move quite swiftly in taking decisions. But more importantly, I think individually we bring valuable experience, regardless of how short. And because of that, we are able to work together to move things forward.
Great. I mean, that's really hopeful. And I must say again, we've said this a couple of times. I mean, we have been covering this sector for a while. We'll take a break. We'll have to come back and conclude.
After this.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio.
Nothing makes my drink more than when the mixer is delightful, exotic, and
2021, we will be sharing very core principles of modern revenue leadership. From the US, Kenya, South Africa, and Ghana, we are welcoming 25 of the very best revenue leaders and trainers. They will be training CEOs, CMOs, sales managers, and so on topics relating to growing revenue by data and processes. The Africa Revenue Summit holds on June 4th and 5th, 2021 at the Campbell Center, Marina, Lagos between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. daily. To register, text growth and name of your company to 0907-004-7684 or send an email with growth and name of your company to afres@salesruby.com. That is AFRES@salesruby.com. You can't afford to miss this.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
Your number one station for talk. Let's talk.
All right, welcome back. We are signing off now. Sorry we had to go on that break. And before we went on that break, you heard an exclusive interview, a conversation with one key person, of course, talking about engineer Barka Sajou, who is the Executive Director, Technical Services, Rural Electrification Agency, this REA. We spoke on pathway to sustainability. And this is where we draw the curtains on this conversation, Wiebe.
Yeah, so engineer, thank you so much for being patient with us and coming back a second time.
Yep.
I think this time we finally got the message out there, and everyone was able to hear of the good work you guys are doing. So thank you very much. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you very much.
Like Collins was saying, so many of the guests we have, whether they're from they're based in Cambodia or India or even South America, they always make a comment about the great work REA is doing in Nigeria, and it's universal. So thank you for that. Thank you for the leadership you guys are providing, and please keep it going.
Thank you very much, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Great.
All right.
Certainly you will. Well, thank you again. That's where we end the conversation here, and we would just walk out of the studio and just go and wait for next Monday to come again, and then we'll bring you another guest, another conversation. Even though Lagos, Nigeria has been calling, I guess they want to contribute. Let me see if I can squeeze one call and find out if no, we can't do that. Guys, we promise you next week we'll create time to take your calls. We'll create time to take your calls indeed. Wiebe.
All right, thanks, Collins. It's been another great show, learning a lot. Thanks again to the REA for their great work, and Nigerians, I think help is on the way. Power is going to get better.
Better days ahead indeed. The news coming up right after this.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.